All right. So, hey, that's awesome. Your network just popped in. That's great. So now you're like full size again. Um, yeah, we're back with another online meetup. We've got Nick Belli here with us. He's going to talk about staying in shape for when you're at work and stuck at a desk. And now that we're all stuck at home, can't go to the gym. Not that I was anyway, but yeah, so really excited. Nick, if you could introduce yourself, that'd be awesome.
Hey, everybody. My name's Nick. I currently work as a QA lead for Humana, fully remote, which has left me in a place where now that I'm working from home and not exercising a whole lot, I've stumbled on some of this and would like to share it with everybody. It seemed like a good group of people since all of us seem to be learning how to work remotely, how to work from home, and how to, not break ourselves. So, without further ado, I guess we can get into it. Because what we're looking at, as I share my screen here, is really how to break the code, but not yourself. Uh, Many of us are junior developers, some mid, some senior, some in between, some not even doing code. But in everything we do each day, as we work from home, as we go through the paces of daily life, as we find ourselves in more sedentary jobs, our lives get to be in a place where stuff adds up that we don't see. Just like tech debt, when you're writing 1,000 lines of code, all of a sudden there's a bug in the system and you need to be able to fix it. You need to be able to find it and you need to be able to prevent it. So today's session is a lot about preventative, much more than it is cure. If you get to the point where you need to find a cure, absolutely go to a doctor. But hopefully, some of these steps will help you become a little bit more healthy as you have your sedentary work and continue along that path. So, a little bit about me and why are we doing this talk? In the beginning, for the longest time, I've been a rock climber, a backpacker, a kayaker. I kind of grew up in North Carolina where everything was outdoors, and that's where you spent your life. You didn't spend it inside very often, and if you did, your parents weren't very happy with you. So I worked into a lot of manual roles for many years, often outside. I did theater, I did pyrotechnics, I worked on boats, I did wait staffing, a lot of very active, very highly mobile activities to the point that I was finding that I was active 10 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, easily. Often even more than that, because after I was done working, I'd go out and do something else. I'd go cycling, I'd go hiking, I'd do something. But what changed? Well, much like a lot of people, I started to transition into a desk job about 8 years ago and found I was sitting there for 50 hours a week. I'd barely move. I'd get up for a little bit to go get a glass of water, go get some lunch. But other than that, I kind of just sat there and did the job and pushed through. But I started to notice the change in flexibility, started to notice a change in strength. When I went climbing and backpacking, I wasn't as good. I needed to work harder. And I also began to have a higher recurrence of back pain, neck issues, migraines, wrist pain. And about 3 years ago, I started for the first time to wear computer and reading glasses. So you see this through pretty much all of humanity as we get into sedentary roles. We get a lot of screen time. And what this led me to do is go, okay, I can either complain about it or I can fix it. And so I started researching ways to combat all of that degradation of the body that would still allow me to not get too many weird stares in the workplace because nobody wants that. But at the same time, do what's right for me and for my body. So today, moving forward, I wanted to share with you that the health journey really starts with a single step, or maybe just a change in your workplace. And what do we mean by that? Let's start with eye strain, right? So looking at WebMD, looking at a few other of the ocular websites, we see a common theme in eye strain, especially in tech workers, because we don't blink enough. We sit here staring at code in a dark screen in a dark room for hours upon hours per day. We're diving through tutorials, we're diving through documents, and we're just reading constantly on digital surfaces. And we don't blink enough. We also find that the contrast of the text against the background is a huge indicator. So if you're using really dark fonts on top of really dark um, backgrounds, so your favorite Visual Studio Code theme has everything with dark purples and reds on a black background, it might not be the best for your eyes. Try and change that contrast up, even if it's changing to something like a color deficient mode, maybe some oranges and some yellows in there. And then also take a look at how much your screen glares and how much your screen flickers. So when your screen's getting a whole lot of glare on it, say you've got backlight behind you and it's popping off of your old CRT tube monitor, try and see if we can find some way to fix that. A lot of times, a few years ago, it was really popular to get anti-glare matte covers for your CRT monitors, and even for some of the LEDs that were super bright. A lot of it was for privacy, but it also helps cut that glare on coming in from the different angles and it getting to your eyes. And then the other part is screen flickering. So with screen flickering, older monitors will have a much slower flicker rate, and then newer monitors will have a lot larger refresh rate there, going to 100, 120 hertz. And we see it a lot in high-end gaming monitors, but we don't realize that getting that type of high refresh rate will also help our eyes because we don't notice the flickering as often. So what can you do to combat that? So we talked really briefly just a second ago about the cutting the glare with a matte filter or anti-reflective LED monitor. But if you don't have the ability to go out and purchase something, what else could you do? Well, one of the top pieces across all of the resources I found was move the monitor an arm's length away. Keeping your monitor an arm's length away reduces the amount of glare and the closeness and the strain on your eyes of trying to read it very closely, focus really hard on that, and having all of that come back at you. You've got your cut the glare. We've also got the 20-20-20 rule. This happens a lot in any of the documents I found for how to help your eyes become stronger and not have this degradation. And the 20-20-20 rule is really just like it says on the screen. Every 20 minutes, look at something that's 20 feet away for 20 seconds. This really is kind of helpful as we think about how we're spending our time, because if you can in your home office, try and situate yourself towards a place that has a window. I have a very nice window to the backyard right now. I got very lucky to have this in the office room I have, and so I look out at the one of the trees that's further away as I'm going through. I try and about every on the hour at the minimum, or every half hour, I try and look out. I don't make 20 minutes all the time, but making 30 minutes or an hour even is a step in the right direction. And I take a look at it and I'm like, okay, cool. Let me see if I can maybe see some birds in the tree or find a squirrel or something to give me some motivation to look at that. And then take a longer break every 2 hours. For a lot of tech people, Pomodoro timers have come into a lot of high fashion. So you set it for 35 minutes and you take a 5-minute break, or you set it for a different set of time, maybe a longer set of time, and you take a longer break afterwards. Think about how you can leverage the Pomodoro timer if you're using that technique to also at the same time fit in some of these steps that we're looking at, like taking the longer break every 2 hours. And that's really not taking a break to look at your phone and not taking a break to go read something else. It's taking a break to go out and look and visually get your eyes up and out. So they take a visual representation of what's going on around you, maybe take a walk at the same time. Another step for you is if you have really dry eyes, check out some artificial tears. There are, I will say though, check with your eye doctor for the proper type for you, because there are apparently a lot of types available. Some are for anti-redness, some are for true, just straight dry eyes, some are for contacts. Make sure that you're checking with your doc before you put anything in your eye, but it is a possibility for you if you find that your eyes are very dry. Have that conversation. The next piece is improving air quality. And improving air quality is hard to do in a corporate workspace because you're reliant on their HVAC system. You're reliant on their folks to come in and make sure everything's clean and sanitary. You can do your best job at your desk, but you may not have a whole lot of control over that. Here at home, it's nice to be able to improve the air quality because if the room's too dry, if you find your eyes are drying out, it's really tough to breathe because of the dryness of the air. Think about maybe considering a humidifier. A simple step of bringing a humidifier into the room can improve the air quality dramatically, even if you're just doing a low setting on that humidifier. And then finally, a lot of us like to sit in a dark room when we're playing video games. I know I do. I sit there and I'm like, okay, cool. I have a really dark video game. I'm going to darken the room down so I can see all the shadows. But if you're working, ensure your room is brighter than your device, or at least the same brightness. Because if you have your device be brighter than everything else around you, it's like staring into a lamp all day for the entire point, and it's just going to hurt your eyes. So talking about your device, what else could you do with your device itself? Well, there's really 5 good settings that you can take a look at. The first one at the top of the Pentagon here is to raise the contrast. We talked about a little bit with the text contrast, but what about your background contrast? What about your icons? What about different parts and pieces that you have in your background? What about the actual contrast setting itself? If you raise the contrast, it allows your brain and your eyes to read things more effectively, like this dark background with the very light font. The dark background with the light font also helps people who are color deficient or colorblind because the grayscale changes. So if you think in your mind about raising the contrast for a grayscale, it might let you see a little bit better how that's doing. The other thing you want to do is change the screen brightness. Again, that brightness going back to having the room brighter than your screen. You can, if you can't brighten the room, lessen the brightness on your screen. Raise the refresh rate. Really, you want to try and get a refresh rate that's higher than 75 hertz. The reason behind that is a lot of the sites that I've seen have said anything less than 75 hertz, your eye constantly catches the flicker. It constantly, even if your brain doesn't hit it, your eye is catching it and it's trying to work harder to see what changed. So if you raise the refresh rate, you see it's a more of a seamless run and much easier to see. Next, lower the temperature. And I don't mean lower the temperature in the room. I mean lower the temperature on your screen. I know my monitors themselves have reading mode, which is absolutely fantastic for when I'm actually working on documents and stuff. Because what it'll do is it'll take a lot of that blue light that's coming out of your screen out and give you more reds and duller. It'll be a little bit duller to read, but at the same time, you're not straining as much against this attack of the blue light hitting your eyes. So if you can lower the temperature, maybe by just a simple preset setting, maybe you have a reading mode, maybe you have a dark mode, maybe you have something similar to that. Try that out, see if it helps a little bit. I know lowering my temperature to reading mode helped a lot. And then finally, don't be afraid to make the text larger. All of the people doing web dev know that you can increase the size of the font, both in your Word documents, but it's also in your web browsers. By doing a control and a scroll of your mouse, you can simply make a lot of that larger, get that text bigger, and reduce the amount on your eyes that's it's straining for. When it's really small, you feel like you have to automatically lean forward. You feel like you have to get close to that screen in order to read, or you have to put your glasses on in order to read. And that's not really a comfortable position for your body overall. So go ahead and make that text larger. Sit back a little bit, enjoy the entire experience. As we're moving on from eyes, the cool thing about a lot of this is it starts to become holistic. And what I mean by that is we're going to go from the eyes down the leaning forward thought process into carpal tunnel and carpal tunnel avoidance. So here, the difficulty was every resource I found said there's not really one risk factor that leads to carpal tunnel for you. It's hard to narrow down a cause. And so since onset sometimes happens out of the blue, you'll be typing along, you'll be working a 40-hour week, getting that code out the door, or you'll be sitting there playing video games, and all of a sudden your arm kind of hurts and your wrist kind of hurts. Your thumb and forefinger just start to feel really kind of painful. Sometimes you've got some cold symptoms of that, like the actual fingers themselves are cold. Sometimes it feels like it's cramping up a little bit, but they're so diverse, it's hard to narrow down what carpal tunnel onset really is. But the one thing that everybody can agree with is if it is very persistent, if it stays around for a really long time and you just can't get rid of it, nothing seems to work. None of the tips I'm going to share with you in a few moments work. Go see a doctor. The only real resolution outside of some of these exercises and strengthening that a lot of the doctors are talking about is going in and doing maybe a surgery for it or fixing things. And that's a doctor's call. That's nothing that I'd be able to help with here. So I wanted it out there anyway, just so you know that if you do see a lot of pain consistently, continue to go to that doctor and get that help. But what could you do to try and begin to keep it from happening to start? Well, you can do this quadrant of help that I've found. In first quadrant, take a break. Take a break, just like that eye from Pomodoro's timers and looking out the window. Stop the repetitive task at the same time to regularly relax your hands. Once you take that break, stretch a little bit. Stretch your fingers, move your wrist a little bit, watch a Taylor Swift video and shake it out. I mean, they can all go any different directions. But taking that break and relaxing your hands is essential to keeping that blood flowing where it needs to go and keeping your body from tightening down and pinching the different parts and pieces in your shoulder and arm and wrist that can lead to carpal tunnel. The other thing is, if you need to, wear a splint in between your breaks. Symptoms are often more common at night, so wearing a splint in the evening may help relieve your symptoms before they even start. And if you have issues with the repetitive tasks at work, like constantly moving your mouse and typing, you can also wear wrist splints during the day. There are lots of things on the market. See if any of it works for you. Ask your doctor if they have a nice suggestion for your body type, and see if that helps. But in between, even if you're wearing a splint, still take a break, take that splint off, kind of shake it out a little bit, keep the blood flowing through. Second quadrant's really watching your motion. How do you hold that mouse? Do you hold it in a claw grip? Do you hold it in kind of a full-on hand grip? Are you really kind of going against it and being like He-Man against it and hulking on it? If so, try and lighten it up. See if you're typing, if you're on a mechanical keyboard, are you banging on that keyboard real hard? Try and type a little lighter. A lot of that will ease the stress on all those muscles from that repetitive motion and help keep that from happening. And keep it neutral. When I say keep it neutral, it's looking at how your keyboard's set up, how your mouse is set up. Is your keyboard raised so that your wrists end up in a weird position for most of the day? Is your mouse gigantic so that you really have to come at it from the top instead of having a neutral position across? Watch your posture as well. Taking a look at your posture, going back to the eyes of getting close to that monitor, sit back, enjoy that lumbar support that your chair gives you, and really take a look at what your posture is doing. Because the poor posture may cause you to roll your shoulders forward. And if you're rolling your shoulders forward, what may also occur is that the muscles in your neck, shoulders, and arms kind of get bunched. They shorten a little bit. And because of that, it's harder to keep them down and back where they should be. And that also leads to the continual tightening of the muscles that leads to the carpal tunnel. So in addition, next quadrant's kind of stretch and strengthen. We'll take a look at this quadrant at the end of the thing, if we got a little bit of a demo for everybody to do exercises with. But as we stretch and strengthen, do those hand and wrist stretches as you take that break. And then throughout the day, throughout life, however you're doing it, however you're scheduling it, or even if you're doing it and not even thinking about it, try and find things that can strengthen your grip, your fingers, your arms, your shoulders, your neck muscles, keeping all of that in a good place. Push-ups, planks, different pieces there. There are devices out there that will help you with your grip strength and your finger strength. We'll get into that in just a minute. And then finally, heal. Always take time, anytime you do any stretch or strengthen, anytime you have injury, take time to heal. A lot of us run really far, really fast all the time. We're go, go, go because it has to be done. You have to hit that deadline. But if you're always hitting deadlines and you never take that time to heal, you'll do more damage to yourself, even in a sedentary role. So things you can do to kind of help those muscles. Keep the hand and wrist warm with fingerless gloves. If your environment's really cold, I know some of my corporate environments, it was extremely cold and my hands always cramped up during the day and they hurt. You can keep the hand and wrist warm with some fingerless gloves. They're usually pretty cheap online. You can order a pair and wear them around. Get something that is kind of soft and warm. So maybe some fleece, maybe a little wool gloves if you really need some warmth. Or maybe just some cotton gloves if you don't really need a whole lot of warmth, but you just want a little bit. Elevate your hands when possible. Try not to keep your hands down dangling by your side as you're just sitting there. Try and keep your hands elevated so that they're continually getting that movement of blood flow through them. And then if you're starting to get pain, maybe check and see if a little bit of ibuprofen or Aleve or another over-the-counter pain reliever helps alleviate the symptoms for long enough for you to do something else with it. By taking those breaks, by wearing the splints, by checking to keep your hands warm, and stretching and strengthening. And if it's constant, always see a doc. Get an official opinion. So, but talking about strengths and pieces, some tools you can use that exist out there are that I use in rock climbing when I'm doing training to try and grip onto a rock and have a lot of strength there without it locking up. Something I do for training for that is I use a grip strengthener. Prohands.net, there's no gimmicks here or anything else, just tools that I use. But Prohands.net has a range of grip strengtheners. Usually you'll see this with people who play guitar or people who climb, or people who need dexterity in their individual fingers or their whole hands. What it does, and I have a couple samples here in just a second, I'll go back to video in just a second, is it really helps you kind of strengthen each finger as necessary and notice which ones are weaker than the others. And it also helps you with whole hand. You can also do stress balls. Anything with substance will work. Tennis balls tend to be a little too hard. So if you can get something like maybe some Nerf balls, or if you go to a conference and they're handing out stress balls or a little stress clown or something, grab it. Maybe a rubber ducky from Idera if you see like a sequel group or something. I know they hand those out. So I've got a few different types of things that will work for me for gripping on things. But really, you kind of grab the ball or the duck or whatever it is, and you kind of grip tight for 5 seconds, and then you release. And that release kind of gets the blood back flowing, shake it out a little bit, then grip tight again to get that strength going in the forearm and their hand, and then release. And do that 5 or 6 times and see how that goes. And then if you would like to go up in a different difficulty, look for something with a little denser substance. The other piece is working the opposite way. And the reason you want to work the opposite way is you don't want too much growth in one direction. You don't want too much strength in one direction, because you want the antithetic muscles to also help. So if you've got a ponytail like I do, you've got hair bands laying around everywhere. If you've got rubber bands just sitting around from a project you were working on, or if you want to find an actual consumer grade grip handband, there's a link there to Rogue Fitness. They've got a pretty good one as well. They got a light, medium, and hard. But what these are for is, instead of gripping together into a fist, these are designed to help you work against yourself as you try and spread your fingers as wide as possible. And that strengthens the opposite muscles, so that when you open your hand wide, you can kind of feel the muscles on the back of your hand and around your fingers kind of going that way. And here, I'll show you a couple of the examples I've got. Let me stop my share. So some of the things I've got, so this is the Grip Master. This one particularly happens to be heavy tension. And what it does is you kind of grip it in your hand here. And then if you want to do a whole hand, just tighten down and up. So here I can type for 5 seconds, and then I can release and shake it out a little bit. That refresh rate on my video, I'm sure, is kind of fun. So the other one, they have an even harder one if you want to go up, or they have reds and blues if you want to go down a level. You can also find grip rings, and the grip ring is kind of a dense rubber ring. And that as well, just tighten. And here I'm feeling it not only here, but also all the way through, down to the elbow. And that's really nice because it keeps a lot of that strengthening going. And then you'd switch to the other hand and make sure you're doing both sides to keep it nice and easy. And finally, just a simple small stress ball. See how it fits nicely into the hand. It's not giant, I'm not trying to grab on anything, and it's not so small that I can't make a fist around it. And just a nice grip, nice and simple. So that really gets us kind of through carpal tunnel. And finally, I think what most people want to see is, how do you keep your back from hurting, right? So next, let's take a look at back pain. The largest, by far, cause of back pain in sedentary workers is poor posture and poor chair use. And every body type is different. I'm sure all of you have a different body type than I do. You may have a similar one, you may not. And at the same time, you all have different chairs. You all have different desks. You've got different work environments. Some people are lucky enough to have sit-stand desks. Others are stuck at a table. You're on your couch. You're leaning forward on your coffee table. You're working on your desk side table somewhere else. And poor posture really kind of hurts you the most, because looking at poor posture and slouching forward in your chair, it tightens all of the muscles in your back, because your back is working really hard to keep you from falling over at all times. Using the chair properly and using a desk properly and really making sure that your posture is nice, even if you can't use a desk or an office chair, will help you a lot more to keep a lot of this stuff at bay. The other thing you have is holding the phone between your ear and shoulder. It's common, especially in places that haven't provided anyone with headsets or phones themselves. They just said, use your cell phone, and you're going about your business, doing your own thing, and you're kind of holding your phone on your shoulder, trying to talk and listen and take care of people and do things all at the same time. Doing that hurts your upper back and it hurts your neck, especially done over time and especially done frequently. And then the last piece is lack of movement. And this is also a huge contributor to all of this, is a lack of movement. Because sedentary roles, we sit and we're coding or we're reading or we're researching or we're in a meeting on WebEx or we're doing something else, and the whole time we're sitting and we don't realize that we haven't moved, and suddenly we've been sitting for 10, 12, 14 hours instead of moving for 10 or 12 or 14 hours. And that really takes a toll on the body as we go through. So what's your first step? Well, if you're having to sit at work and do work for 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day, your first step is to change the station. Change your station of where you're working. If you're lucky enough to have an office desk and an office chair, use the chair with the most lumbar support. Make sure you're leaning back into that lumbar support so that the chair can do the work for you. It can support you in that movement. If you don't have a chair with lumbar support, say you're stuck with your dining room chair, or you've got a camp chair or something that you're kind of coding away in, try and use up a rolled up towel or pillow and make sure it's supporting the curve of the natural curve of your back. For everybody, that'll be a little bit different, but the lumbar region in general will have a natural curve. So trying to find a nice piece where it supports that is really key in keeping your lower back healthy. The next piece is to make it right, angled. So as you're looking at how you're sitting, are you sitting in a chair with your feet dangling? Are your feet crossed at the ankles? Are they tucked up under you? Are you doing a kind of a butterfly position? Try and see if you can adjust whatever you're sitting in so that your knees are at 90 degrees, not hanging, not crossed, not up at your face, but see if you can get where your chairs are 90 degrees, because having your knees at 90 degrees helps your feet and legs stabilize your back. Instead of, if your feet are hanging, your lower back taking a lot of the weight of your legs and having to stabilize that at the same time you're sitting. You can use a footrest or book if your chair is too tall. And then if your chair is too short, take a look at maybe standing for a little bit back and forth if you can't get to the point where your knees are at 90 degrees. Make sure to stand up regularly, walk around. Also, if your chair has armrests, make sure that those are there at your side with your arms at 90 degrees at your elbows. having your arms at 90 degrees for the elbows also helps with the carpal tunnel because it's keeping your arms in a good position close to your body and in a way that they are not reaching too far or straining your neck or upper back. They're also not straining your shoulders, and they're not constantly having to be pulled to reach so far to get your mouse. And then the last, move it away. I know during the eyes, we talked about keeping the monitor an arm's length away. For your eyes, that works. Well, guess what? It also helps work for your back. Keeping the monitor an arm's length away kind of propels you to try and be cognizant to sit up and sit back in that chair or that place that you're resting. Sitting up and sitting back, keeping the monitor an arm's length away, having that text legible from an arm's length away, all great things that are going to help you holistically across the board. And if your phone is a problem, try and see if you can use a headset, speakerphone. Maybe you've got a set of earbuds. Maybe you have a Bluetooth headset with a microphone on it. Try something so that you're not holding that phone between your shoulder and your neck, keeping so that way you're not tensing up one side of your neck by having it trying to hold that phone in place, and you're also not getting out of balance with lengthening in the muscles. So support the curve, make it right angled, and move that away. And lastly, the biggest piece for all of this, for eyes, for carpal tunnel, for back, for legs, for anything you're doing, as I've gone through and looked, the biggest piece is get up and move, right? Yes, do that Pomodoro timer. Take those short breaks. When you do the short breaks to get up and move, add the eye training, add the shake it out, add some little bit of stretches. They don't take that long. They don't take that whole 15 minutes. So you still got time to go grab your soda or your water or your Gatorade or your tea or your coffee. You've still got that time to go kind of talk to someone in the other room. You got that time to have a conversation. But as you're doing it, do all these other pieces as well. Fit those into that break and routine. And occasionally, every couple hours, take a longer one. Take a walk. Alternate between sitting and standing at your desk if you can. Stand up occasionally, even if it's not your break time. Just stand up. If you're in a meeting and it's running long and you don't have to be typing anything, stand up. Take that call while you're doing that. And finally, try and strengthen your core for your back. I know it seems a little counterintuitive to strengthen your front when your back is hurting, but your core, your abs, your obliques, your pectorals, all of that really does a wonder to keep everything else in your back in line. That way, it's not just your back working. It's not just your back all day taking the brunt of that force, taking those lengths, taking the grips, the strengths, all of that piece. It's your core as well. But a lot of people go, I don't want to do sit-ups. Well, you don't have to do sit-ups. You can do yoga stretches. You can do Pilates. A lot of places, a lot of people go, yoga and Pilates is what other people do when they just stretch things. It's more than that. It's keeping the breath flowing. It is keeping strength building in your core. It is developing posture, really good posture. And all at the same time, it is still doing wonders to strengthen your back. I took about a year of a Pilates course, and in that time, I saw amazing results in not only my flexibility, but also a reduction in pain, also increased movement, increased strength in how I'm going. And it was even easier for me to sit at a desk in the proper position for long periods of time without falling into the same traps of leaning forward, straining, reaching for things. It was much, much easier. So if you can find some videos on YouTube, there are tons out there. Find an instructor you like that's offering some free courses. some free YouTube videos. Take that longer break, take your lunch break, do some working out. And if you can't fit any of that in because you've got other obligations, you don't get a lunch break because you're gotta hit the deadline. Well, let's take a look at a fun little demo then. Something I found as I was going through for this research. I know some of you are probably sitting at home laughing because this is by far the punniest and most fun thing I have seen in a helpful infographic. So, all right. So what I'd like everybody to do, whether or not you do it is completely up to you. But what I'd like you to do is really do exactly what it says, get up off that thing. Go ahead and just stand up. Stand up in place. Make sure there's nothing around you that you're gonna hit. And really, we're just gonna do 1 through 10. It's really nice and easy. First one, living on a prayer. Go ahead and bring your palms together. Fingers pointed up. Elbows out. Pull your hands to your chest and push those hands down. Try and get those hands, only go to where you feel a stretch. Don't incur any pain. If you incur pain, go ahead and back that out a little bit. But go ahead and do that for 10 seconds. Okay? Next, we're going to do like a prayer. And the really cool thing about this one, all we're doing is we're flipping our hands over. Keep those hands pressed tightly together. Turn those hands downwards as far as you can. It doesn't have to be directly pointed straight down if you don't have the flexibility for it. Get to where you can, feel that stretch, and pull those hands up a little bit. You should feel the stretch in the backs of your hands and in both sides of your forearms. Hold that for 10 seconds. Next, just like MC Hammer, you can't touch this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna lace our fingers together. You can do this seated or standing. Lace your hands together and extend the arms forward, palms reaching outward. What you'll feel here is you'll feel it in your shoulders. Try and keep those shoulders low. Try not to scrunch your shoulders up to your neck, up to your head. And try and just let your shoulders relax into it as you push your arms forward. Trying to feel that stretch in the upper arms and your shoulder muscles. And again, you can do this seated if you prefer. And we're holding that for 10 to 20 seconds. Just about done. All right, next, moving on to Thriller. All right, so for Thriller, what we've got going on is we've got the arms are behind the back. Grab your wrist with the opposite hand and go ahead and pull. So for this one, we're gonna do 2 sides. So grab your left wrist with your right hand, pull a little bit, and then lean your head to the right. And what you're going to do there is you're going to feel that stretch go down from the top, from the side of your head, down your neck, down your shoulder a little bit, and down your arm. Again, if you feel pain, back off of it. Only go as you feel the stretch. We do that for 10 to 12 seconds. And next, let's swap to the next side. So left hand on right wrist, and our head's gonna go to the left. All right. Next, going on to pump it up. Pump this up. We're going to do your arms above your head. Some people see this as a trap stretch, trapezius stretch. So you're going to do your arm above your head. You're going to kind of almost pat yourself in the middle of your shoulder blades if you can get there. Or if you can't, maybe the back of your head is as far as your hand can go, and that's okay. But your arm above your head is the main thing. You want to grab a hold of your elbow. In this case, we're going to put your right arm behind your head. We're going to grab that right elbow with your left hand, and you're going to lean to the left. For me, this one's a real deep stretch, so I don't get to move very much, but I still feel a lot of stretch in those shoulders. Make sure your shoulders are fairly relaxed. All right. You're only holding this one for about 8 to 10 seconds. It's a pretty stiff stretch. All right. Let that go. And take your left hand behind your head now. Right hand on your left elbow. And then lean to the right. Feel that stretch in there. Feel all those tight muscles in the shoulders from leaning forward all day. It's a good time. All right, let that one go. Straight up. Straight up, now tell me. All right, now so for this one, very similar to can't touch this, but in a different direction. Fingers interlaced, palms up towards the sky. Over your head, your arms should be directly next to your ears. And just push that up. Try and keep your shoulders down a little bit. Keep them from raising as well. We're going to hold that for 10 seconds to 15 seconds. We'll just do 10. All right. Number 7, Boogieman. With your arms at your sides, we're just doing a simple shoulder roll. So take your arms at your sides, roll your shoulders forward, up, and back. And as you go, make sure that shoulder roll takes about 3 seconds to do a rotation. 1001, 1002, 1003. Nice. We do that the third time. 1001, 1002, 1003. For get back, number 8, we're actually going to sit down. So if you've got a chair there next to you, if not, that's okay. These will be available for you to do. What you're going to do is you're going to sit down on the edge of whatever you can sit on. Place your hands on the lower back for support. Kind of just lean back a little bit. Try and get a little bit of a stretch. Again, if you've got pain, herniated discs, something like that, don't push it. Do what you can. And we're holding this for 10 seconds, just a nice lean back. Try and push those shoulders back a little bit as well. Open up your pectoral muscles. There. Good there. Number 9 is a twist. Probably remember these from grade school if you had PE teachers like I did. And you're going to cross one leg over the other. In this one, you're seated in a chair. You can do this as well, seated on the ground, and get an even deeper stretch in your legs also. So I recommend that if you can. If you're comfortable just in a chair, go ahead and stay in that chair, and we'll do the twist. So what we're going to do is we're going to cross the right leg over the left at the knee. And then what we're going to do is we're going to twist to the right-hand side. And we're going to try and look over our right shoulder. As you look over your right shoulder, you should feel the stretch in the shoulders, possibly the lower back. A little bit of legs. If you're seated on the ground, your legs in front of you, you feel this in your hip flexors really well. It's a really nice hip flexor stretch. And we're holding this for 8 to 10 seconds. Good. And now left leg over right, and we're going to do the opposite. And as you're holding this, one thing I didn't note that you may not see is make sure that with your left leg over your right hand is on your knee, kind of helping your whole body just kind of open across that gaze. All right. And last, the awesome shake, rattle, and roll. So go ahead and stand up. Did a good job. Put your arms at your sides. Shake your hands out. As you shake your hands out for 8 seconds. Move it up, shake your arms. And then just let your whole body shake. Just get it all out, get that flowing. And if you do this, it took us actually about 13 minutes to take all that time and talk it through. There's your 15-minute break. It's a nice, quick, easy way to keep stretching. Get a lot of that going. It's got your first 3 are really great for your carpal tunnel, and everything else is awesome for your back and your legs and your hips. So yeah, this is a really great top 10. Put it all together. Do this during your time at home as you're going through, and really stretch it out. Keep it moving. With that, here's some of the sites. I don't expect you to be able to read all of them. We can send out the PowerPoint and everything else afterwards. But here are a lot of the sites I've gone to look at that might be cool to see. One of the really cool ones I saw was the Blue Zones project. Check that out. It's how people are trying to put movement and healthy communities back together. They got some nice little articles and tips and tricks, not just about exercise, but also about how to stay healthier at home. Mayo Clinic, WebMD naturally, Aurora Healthcare for carpal tunnel. That was a really good one to read. And then Healthline. Healthline surprised me. It was actually really well written. A lot of the articles are medically reviewed as well for accuracy. So it's a nice site. All about vision for that irritated eyes thing. And then funny enough, Fast Company had a nice thing to take a look at 5 simple exercises to fix all the damage your desk job does. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you guys today learned a few tricks, learned some things that you didn't necessarily know before, and can continue to move forward with some health and happiness as we all continue to go through life in these fantastic work from home times.
Awesome. So great presentation. Does anybody have any questions that's out there watching? I will admit that I did the exercises while you were going over them. I did not switch my screen over to distract anybody. Nobody probably wants to see me stretch anyway. But yeah, we had a couple of questions in the chat, like some comments. One was about like recommended humidity level for your eyes. I looked that up and saw 45% supposedly is the recommended. I don't really worry about that in Florida because it's always over that. So
yeah, the research that I found was basically if your eyes are no longer able to water, they're too dry.
That makes sense.
So if you're blinking and it feels raspy or dry, increase that humidity, or check out the artificial tears. Smokers, especially from what I've read, have a lot of really bad dry eye symptoms. So if you smoke, their recommendation is either increase the humidity or try and stop smoking, which I know is a whole lot easier said than done. But that's one of the pieces there. And then if you live in a very dry environment, not only can you increase your humidity in the room, but you can also increase your own water intake, which will help your body create those tears itself.
Interesting. Did you come across? I'm sure you have, but how much water do you have to drink during the day or anything like that, or does that factor into like stretching or anything like that?
With water, everything I've seen gets contradictory because everybody's body type's different and your environment's different as well. Like when I'm climbing in the East Coast of North Carolina, I don't have to drink nearly as much water as when I'm climbing out in New Mexico. Um, I'll drink a couple liters of water in North Carolina, and I'll drink like a gallon in New Mexico just because it's so dry and it dries you out so quickly. So location is also another factor in how much, as well as your metabolism and how much you can actually consume.
Gotcha.
It's one of the hardest ones to find like accurate data on what you should be drinking all the time.
Yeah, I've read a lot of contradictory stuff on that. I know that I don't drink enough, and I know that basically if you feel thirsty, you should drink, but also as you get older, your thirst drive gets diminished. So, um,
Mm-hmm. There is not to be completely off color, but there's a urine test you can do with coloration that may or may not be totally accurate depending on what you ate, which is another contradictory piece. Um, there is a, if you can't sweat, you probably need more water. Um, and if your eyes aren't able to water, you probably need more water. So seeing where your body naturally perspires or gets rid of excess water is usually a pretty okay indicator as you're going through, especially in like the outdoor stuff.
yeah, 100%. We had a funny, since you mentioned urine and urinalysis, we had a funny saying in fire school, which was drink until you have to pee and then drink some more.
Yep.
Because we're outside sweating all day. I mean, that's obviously
Yep.
super different if you're inside typing, but cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's a super weird note to end on, but I think we can probably tie it up there. Thanks again, Nick, for for volunteering to do this. It was a great
Yeah, absolutely.
presentation.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to take it a step further, once you can leave and do things, you can do Pilates, you can do yoga at home, you can do step classes and things at home. You don't have to have gear. You can do it against a wall if you can't do full body weight. Um, and there are ways to exercise that don't require a gym. I fully believe that everybody is capable of doing at least some exercise to keep themselves healthy and take that next step. So keep pushing forward. Everybody, hopefully everybody got something out of this and would like to continue that movement forward.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks again, Nick. Do you have anything that you want to promote or throw out like a Twitter handle or anything?
Um, Twitter handle is just let me share my screen one more time. It's real simple. It's just Nick Belli 13. Feel free to link up with me or anything else. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. LinkedIn.com. It's Nick Belli. There are 4 or 5 Nick or Nicholas Bellis in LinkedIn apparently. So mine's just the straight up first shortened name and last name. So that's all I got.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Nick. And yeah, just thank you. That was great. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you. Hope you all have a great night.